Thank you for being there. Good morning. Welcome back. My good name is Ban Sanko. Now, in this conversation, we're delving into matters, the economy, and how to change it for good. What are some of the interesting aspects that literally would drive this economy on the road to goodness, especially when it comes to transforming it? Some of the economic frameworks that you basically need to know. And we'll be engaging Dayton Mulinge. He's a portfolio management consultant. He has an interesting approach to this that will literally strike your attention. Karibu sana, Dayton.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, so a brief overview of what you do and what you aspire to change.
I have a background in economics. I've worked in the financial industry in Kenya before I moved to Sweden. In Sweden, I got my master's degree in financial mathematics. For the last 10 years, I've been living in Sweden, working and running my own business, a portfolio consulting firm. Part of coming to Kenya is driven by a deep desire to contribute to the economic development journey of this nation. I want to contribute to the economic development journey.
Yeah.
Why, you might ask? Part of it is because of my background. I come from a quantitative finance background, and in this area, macroeconomics is a big deal. And the framework we use to analyze these macroeconomic trends and come up with investment strategies is the same framework that is used in economic development. It's the same framework that developed nations use to foster economic growth. It's the same framework that is recommended by economics textbooks. I want to leverage this background in economic development in our nation.
Earlier today in the morning, I think it was in my Gov, where there was one of the articles that I think Cabinet Secretary for Economic Planning, that is John Badi, he was highlighting how our GDP dropped, I think from 5.7 something to 4 point something, yeah, not specifically the exact one. And when you look at that in terms of, you know, where we're operating at from our labor market, production industries as well, maybe what would you say are specific aspects of our economy that you are very deeply inspired to transform that? You know, also, before I forget, we have the issue of unemployment. We're seeing a massive chunk of the youth being, I believe that is labor exploitation to other countries because we don't have the right structures, or maybe our system is not favorable to our very own. And you can see, again, it draws us back to production. Yeah. So specifically, what main aspects are you wanting to transform?
I think what we are seeing in Africa, especially in Kenya, where we export young people to Middle East and all that, export cheap labor under the guise of economic development, I think that's the height of absurdity. It's an insult to the Kenyan people. This mindset can only come from an environment where there's a complete lack of understanding when it comes to economic development. There's a formula to economic development. There's a formula to economic development.
Yeah, and I believe you said you have the formula.
Absolutely.
So please
Absolutely.
share with
the thing,
maybe you can break down some of the processes.
The thing is, it's not my formula anyway. It's not my formula. Let me just start by saying that. It's this is a framework that was put forward by the father of modern economics, Adam Smith, in his seminal paper, The Way of the Nations, in 1776. What I've done is just to, based on extensive experience in my portfolio management career, to draw this information into a format that is easy to digest. That's what I've done. But the formula is, developed nations use data to make economic decisions. Data in economic development is paramount. So what does the data say?
Yeah.
Economists and the World Bank say that for us poor nations, Kenya, and I mean Africa, for us poor nations.
That's called developing.
For us, developing nations, it's not even developing nations. For us, poor nations.
Poor is really horrible.
It's okay, but that's our situation. For us, poor nations, to put a dent in poverty, for us to eradicate poverty within one generation, we need the economy to grow by 7% per year, consistently, 7% per year.
And that will touch on specific aspects of the economy. Maybe if you were to highlight the ones that could transform quickly the economy? Or what are they?
I'm coming to that. I'm just laying the foundation so that we can build on that. So for us to put a dent in poverty, we need the economy to grow by 7% per year. But for this to work, we need the blood of the economy to flow. The private sector is the blood, the life force of the economy. Even in those countries that provide us with the foreign aid, that money they use to support other nations comes from the private sector. But what does private sector really mean? What do you understand by private sector?
Maybe you can help me.
Private sector means any business with employees in the range of 1 to 250. If you have a business, whatever that means, and the number of employees is within that range, you're considered the private sector. 1 and 250. You're considered the private sector. The driving force.
This could range from even an SME or even a startup.
When you use SME, that's so academic. For a common man to understand what I'm saying is just use the numbers. Any business with employees from 1 to 250, you can put it as SME, that's okay.
We can say a startup now. No.
As long as you have 1 to 250 employees within your company, you're considered the private sector.
So it covers both a startup or even SME.
It doesn't
or even
matter.
MSME.
The thing is, it doesn't matter even if you're the only one who is running that business. If you have your own company and you're the only employee, you're considered the private sector. It doesn't matter even if you're employed and on the other side you have a side hustle which complements your income at the end of the month, you're considered the private sector. So the private sector is the life force of the economy. So the work of the government when the private sector takes the center stage is to provide public goods. Public goods. What is public goods? It's just those services that our taxes finance, like education, healthcare, infrastructure. Those are public goods. That's the work of the government to provide those services. Apart from public goods, it's supposed to provide a conducive environment for the private sector to thrive. Why? A good business environment attracts investments. So for all this to work, for all this to come together, private sector demands 3 things. 3 things. We have labor. Labor is just workforce. Employees, ranging from 15 to 65 years of age. That's what is considered as workforce, from 15 to 65 years of age. It demands quality labor. That's in terms of education. It demands highly qualified labor force. And also on the side of healthcare. It demands healthy, employees to run your business. That's labor. Then we have capital. Capital is just money, essentially money to start or expand your business. The more access you have to money, the more access you have to finances, the better place is your business. That's capital. Then we have productivity. Productivity is essentially efficiency and innovation.
Before I forget, do political factors determine the stability of a country's economic flow?
Absolutely, absolutely. When it comes
do you believe we are at the most stable temperature yet?
The framework we have is wrong.
Why would you say it's wrong?
Productivity, when it comes to productivity, mainly it covers the system of governance. They say democracy is the best when it comes to economic growth. It covers the laws and governance, and it also covers technology. Technology is the main driving force when it comes to productivity. This metric alone, productivity, accounts for 60% as to why one nation outgrows another. Why Kenya and Singapore in 1960s were at when it comes to GDP. But now, Singapore, the GDP for Singapore is 5 times more of that of Kenya. What happened? That can be explained by this metric, the productivity metric. So those are the 3 cornerstones of economic development.
Understood. You're saying we have the wrong, is it the wrong formula or the wrong outlook?
Framework. The framework we use to...
What are the loopholes that are making it to be not a good framework to stabilize our GDP? Because in the survey, I think we read in the morning, I think from the Cabinet Secretary for Economic, he says they're also blaming it as well on climatic conditions. There's also the thing of the Gen Z protest as well. They're saying it made it unstable. And so we are on our way to recovery. Do you believe we are on the way to recovery?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, it's optimistic. I like that. But we need to get the right framework when it comes to economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
For it to be sustainable, we need the right framework. Out of these three metrics, I think the one that demands maximum attention is the issue of labor.
Yeah.
And here's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Labor, when you look at labor, that's the workforce, the quality of labor force. Private sector demands, we say demands highly qualified people, labor force, employees.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a report that is produced by OECD, that's the PISA survey report, that is done every 3 years to evaluate the performance of those who are graduated from Form 4, you know? Mm-hmm. And it says that in Sub-Sahara, only 30% of students who graduate from Form 4 mm-hmm. meet the minimum proficiency level in mathematics. Mm-hmm. What is this minimum proficiency level in mathematics? Mm-hmm. This is the, think of it as the SI unit of measuring basic knowledge in mathematics.
Yeah. And yet we are deleting it from the curriculum.
30%, just I'll come to that. Only 30% of
mm-hmm.
students who graduate from Form 4 meet that threshold.
This is not even higher learning, this is high school.
That's Form 4, that's high school.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning they are not able to apply basic mathematics mm-hmm. concepts in real life, you know, mm-hmm. situations. In Kenya, mm-hmm. the situation is the same. Mm-hmm. Out of 10 students who graduate from Form 4, mm-hmm. only 3 meet that threshold.
Only 3?
We say 7 out of 10 do not meet that threshold.
Okay.
When you
per institution or
it's the report, it does per country. It can be per Sub-Sahara, in Europe. Mm-hmm. So in Kenya, mm-hmm. specifically in Kenya, 7 out of 10 students who graduate from Form 4 don't meet that threshold. Bizarre. Compare this with the global standard level, which is 75%. Mm-hmm. Meaning, out of 10 students who graduate from Form 4, mm-hmm. 7 must meet this threshold. For us, mm-hmm. it's only 3 out of 10. And we seem least concerned about this report.
So that touches on education.
Just wait. It's true. Mm-hmm. But the issue is why mathematics? Mm-hmm. Why are we focusing on mathematics? Why not Swahili? Why not name it? Why mathematics? Mm-hmm. If you believe in economics, the projections of economic principles, mm-hmm. the idea that countries that are involved in agriculture, think Africa, they usually find themselves in the low-income categories.
Countries that mainly focus on agriculture? That
are heavily involved in agriculture. Mm-hmm. Think Africa.
Let me think Kenya. Mm-hmm.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. They usually fall in the category of low-income category. Why?
That's shocking, actually.
It's the nature of global commodity prices. Mm-hmm. Commodity market, it's not even about agriculture. We have natural resources like oil, precious metals. It's the same. Mm-hmm. Commodity prices are highly volatile. Okay. A sudden drop like this of price, spells doom for economies. Yeah. That means
we pride ourselves as agriculture is the backbone of our economy.
That's one truth.
Which goes again to production, and then again shines the light on EPZs. So I believe we are circling back at the same place, but then going
from a portfolio management approach. Mm-hmm. Agriculture is commodity. Mm-hmm. Commodity is highly volatile. Okay. Prices just shift like this. It spells disaster to economies, meaning mm-hmm. massive job losses. Mm-hmm. Consider this: 65% of the workforce in Africa is employed in the agriculture. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you? That's poverty right there.
So we are going back to the low-income earning.
Absolutely, it's a vicious circle. You'll just be rotated, there. That's on agriculture. So we have countries that focus on industries and manufacturing. Think China and the Asian economies. Mm. They usually fall in the category of middle-income economies.
So in our country, what is the issue exactly, if you can just pinpoint? Because there's even the cabinet secretary says there's something that needs to be done to our EPZ. So I don't know if it's increasing more EPZs or focusing more on the private sector.
All those things are good. But you have to get the right framework.
Yeah, please.
I want to lay the foundation first, so that we can now
really
build on that. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I think you've explained a lot of things.
There's something else. Just give me 1 minute.
Framework,
I'm not almost there. I want to put this thing together.
Okay.
Countries that are involved in service industry, think of the West, the developed nations, they usually find themselves in the high income category. For these nations, for these service industry countries, to become competitive and remain competitive over the long term, they take the lead in science, technology, innovation, research and development, with mathematics being the catalyst. Maths is the foundation. You can't run away from maths.
So Kenya, we've not prioritized that.
I'm building the foundation here. Unless we get the foundation right, the next 60 years of Kenya will just mirror the last 60 years. We have to get the right framework. So high income economies, the domain is mathematics. That
is education.
That's on quality side. I'm done with the quality. We said in Kenya, 3 out of 10, only 3 out of 10 will meet that threshold.
Shocking number.
Now look at the numbers. Now, in terms of quantity now, we are done with the quality. I want to focus on the quantity side. According to UN, the projections are in the next 25 years. In the next 25 years, the global population will hit the 10 billion mark. 10 billion mark. 25% of this population will call Africa home.
Within the next?
25 years.
25 years. That's probably by 2040 something there.
It's not far. Consider this. Kibaki's free education, that lot. Today they are 22 years. Does it make sense? It's not far 25 years from now. But the thing is, they say in the next 25 years, the global population will be 10 billion. 25% of this will be in Africa. We're talking of 2.5 billion people, right? Currently, as we speak, we are 1.4 billion people. Meaning in the next 2 decades, Africa is going to see 1 billion plus people in their population, an addition of 1 billion people in their population. Here's the case now. 70% of them cannot do mathematics. They can't apply basic concepts of mathematics in real life situations. They don't meet that threshold. What does it mean? What are the implications there? It means it will be almost impossible for us to transition from agriculture, whatever you call our backbone, to transition from agriculture to service industries. So we are tied to, our options will only be tied to agriculture and industries and manufacturing. But for those who will be involved in manufacturing industries, it will be difficult for them to compete. Why? China, over the last 20 years, have taken this domain. They have become very effective, very efficient in this domain. When it comes to industries and manufacturing, that's their domain, that's their space. So we are tied to agriculture. Think of this now. 2.5 billion people live in Africa, a low-income continent, where 65% of the population is employed in the agricultural sector. What will be the quality of life of these people going to be? Will it be the same poverty, diseases, and all that?
You said poor countries.
We are poor. It's unless we get the foundation right.
Not developing countries.
Unless we get the foundation right, the next 60 years over, not just Kenya, but Africa, is just going to be to mirror the last 60 years. So you have to get the foundation right. That's why, I'm trying to make a case to Kenyans, to plead with them, to embrace the vision I have, the framework I have, to unite around this vision and together build a country that reflects the highest aspirations of Kenyans. That's why I'm making this case.
Now let's get to the transformative parts that should be injected into the economy.
What you need to do?
Yes.
What you need to do as a nation? I think I have 3 things. We need to get a vision. What vision do we have for this nation? What vision do we have for this nation? Every major achievement begins with a vision. What vision do we have for this country? Even the scripture says, where there's no vision, people perish. There's no future, there's no hope. Again, what vision do we have for this nation? We claim to be, you see the Vision 2030, right?
Yeah,
the one which was launched by Kibaki in 2008.
I'm actually shocked Vision 2030s, then it's just a few years from now.
Just wait, let me make a case here. We claim to be using that Vision 2030.
Mm-hmm.
It was launched by Kibaki in 2008.
We are approaching it.
It was as a guiding manual for economic development, agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The objective is to transition Kenya from a low income to a middle income by 2030.
We have a bottom up.
5 years, whatever that means. 5 years from now.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic initiative, a beautiful initiative. But when you check the metrics that we use to measure the progress, you get another story. Things get interesting. 3 metrics they use to measure the progress. We have economic growth, that's one metric.
This is an economy class, by the way.
Sorry, I think,
Economy lingo, yeah.
Economic growth is one of the metrics. When you check the targets, it says, on average, to grow.
Before I forget, just to be clear on the 3 metrics used to measure. Yeah.
Economic growth, social equity, political stability. Those are 3 metrics they use to measure
political stability. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I had asked you if the political temperature.
Let me make it.
And you said you're making a case. Okay.
So let me start with the economic growth. I'll just be brief. The target was each year the economy should grow by 10% per year.
Okay.
That's on economic
growth. 7%
growth.
is for.
That's what we are supposed to. What World Bank?
Should be the target.
That's what World Bank recommends.
World Bank
so they'd hover, shoot themselves to 10%, which is okay. 10% is okay.
Roughly 3 less. Okay.
But that was a target. Each year, 10% per year for the next 30 years. When you check our average growth for the last 16 years, it has been 4.5% on average, 4.5%. The target is 10% per year, but on average, 4.5%. Would you say that's progress? That's on economic growth. We have now social equity. By 2030, that was the target. Every Kenyan should experience free access to education and healthcare. Free access to education and healthcare. We have 5 years to the.
I'm thinking about SHA when you say that.
Is that your experience?
And the university funding model as you say that. Yeah. Okay.
What's the experience?
Go ahead.
Maybe you might tell me something.
Go ahead.
The other one is the social, the political stability. By 2030, that's 5 years from now, every Kenyan should experience a stable political environment that fosters economic growth.
Are we heading there?
I'm waiting for your answer.
No. Today I don't have answers. I just have questions.
So the thing is, it's clear. I think everyone can see that it's kind of a disaster we have here. We need a new vision. We need a new vision. We can't, we can't continue with this framework we are using to develop our nations. We need a new vision as a country to move forward.
Yeah.
So vision is one. Second was we need to return to economics. We need to return to economics. When you look at Kenya and across Africa, the model we use is foreign aid development model, where without World Bank and IMF, the country is sort of grounded, right? Education, name it, healthcare. Without those main bodies, the country is grounded. We need to move away from foreign aid development model to market-based economic development model, where private sector takes the center stage.
Yeah, you can see even what Trump did, trying to cut ties with most of this.
I know it's a pain to many, but from economic development point of view, it's a plus, it's a win.
Yeah.
There'll be challenges.
I was actually trying to see it in that sense.
There'll be challenges along the way. The first few years, it will be very shaky. There'll be a lot of pain. But in the long run, it's good for economic development.
What makes us, but you've said we shouldn't go back to economics. Mathematics, some of us are not even applying it, but then the political factors as well play a massive role. Yeah.
Come again.
You've said we should go back to economics, introduce mathematics, bodies and matters education. Our political temperatures as well is still shaky and unstable. Yeah.
For us to transition our economies from agriculture to service industry, from low income.
Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, we're not a service. We're not a service.
Well, it's agriculture.
It's agriculture based, yeah.
65% of the workforce in Africa is employed where? In agriculture sector.
Yeah.
For us to transition from that low income to high income, there's no way to go about it without mathematics.
Yeah.
Maths. This is the time to go back to Science Congress. You know, those events, competitions of maths. This is the time to do that.
Yeah.
We have to go back to mathematics.
Yeah.
The Vision 2030 is not working for us. We need a new vision. I'm ready to
go on board with the stakeholders.
Exactly, to sell my vision. What I've seen developed nations use is what I'm coming with in Kenya.
Yeah. So let's say now hands-on, let's say hands-on skills that need to go into it that can quickly transform. So what should we start doing right now as we speak? Because almost 5 years into office are almost coming to a close.
Yeah.
And of course, you've said we should be aiming at least 10%, if not 7%.
The recommendation is 7%. 10, the better. Yeah.
So what should we start doing now with the formula that you have?
There's something which I think I need to say. It's critical.
Say it faster.
Okay. We need to use the economic principles to develop our nations. Does it make sense? If it's true, maths is the foundation of the service industries. The question we need to do to ask ourselves is, how can we equip our people, the school kids, how can we equip our kids with the qualities of high income countries? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Consider this. The landscape of the private sector is shaped by the quality of labor force.
Yeah.
If you have a low-skilled labor force, you end up getting what? Low-skilled, low-paid jobs with limited potential of growth. If the symbol you have for the private sector is a wheelbarrow, if the symbol you have for the private sector is a wheelbarrow, don't be surprised when you get wheelbarrow skills. What do those skills give you? Low-paid jobs with no potential for growth.
Yeah.
Again, if it's true, if the landscape of the private sector is shaped by the quality of labor force, the question now becomes, how do we design this private sector?
Yeah.
That's one. The second one is, how do we equip our young ones with the qualities?
Yeah.
I think those are the two keys. And I want to challenge you, when you're interviewing these leaders and politicians, when they come to your show, pose these questions to them. These questions are the key. Anything outside of these questions is noise. It's not helping Kenyans. These two questions.
It's bottom up.
How do you equip our young ones with the right skills? That's one. How do we design the private sector? Just those two questions. Post them.
Yeah.
The way they answer.
Yeah. Please, I'd like us to delve into them. They're very important questions as well. So how do you equip? But you had mentioned the education part about economics and mathematics. Yeah. But let's go.
I think I'm in the process of writing a book. Most of these solutions, recommendations will be outlined on that book. So I will not share a lot. I want you to buy the book. But I can give you a recommendation. But is it the CS for finance?
Yeah, John Bardi.
But there's a time he came on 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. He came to...
I think CS Treasury and Economic Planning, not finance.
Exactly. There's a time he came to... Was it Citizen? I'm not sure which media was there. He told Kenyans that currently we are spending 950 billion on salaries in the public sector, side. 950 billion. 2021, that amount was 650 billion on the same metric, salaries when it comes to public sector. That's a change of 48%. From 650 to 960, I think that's what he said. It's a change of almost 50% increase in salaries. When you check the global trends when it comes to public employment sector, Kenya, when you check the data from World Bank, Kenya is leading globally when it comes to public employment by 66%. Meanwhile, countries in Scandinavian countries like Finland, Norway, Finland to be specific, that change was only 2%.
Yeah.
Compare that, 2% for Finland. Kenya, we are talking about 66% growth in salaries. What does Finland know that we seem to miss? Finland understands this one truth. The public sector does not exist to create jobs.
It exists too?
The public sector does not exist to create jobs.
It exists.
It exists to support the private sector.
Yeah. And in this case, what's happening?
Unless we get that right, unless we get that truth,
Uh-huh.
unless we come to terms with that truth and live by that truth,
Yeah.
things like broad-based governments, CS without portfolio, whatever, those conversations will be coming to our space.
Yeah.
Public sector does not exist to create jobs, and not for politicians.
Yeah.
It
But
just exists.
Somebody would say there's a lot of cartels, there's a lot of self-vested interest. I think the other day there was somebody who was saying, I think they are trying to pass a law where people in the public, can do business with government. So you're seeing so many hitches in between. There's a huge disconnect as well between the private sector and receiving support or having a relationship with, the government that is also in charge of formulating these policies that massively regulate the private sector.
It's true. Those are good steps. But if the foundation is wrong, there's nowhere you can go. We have to get this mindset that we have to get this, we have to understand that the private sector is the center, think of it like the sun,
is the core
in the sun,
yeah,
in the solar system.
Of the economy.
Exactly.
Okay.
For the last, I think, 20 years, we have been operating with the broad-based governments, Who is financing? It's a toll to the Kenyan people. It's taxpayers' money. We need lean governments. That's why I keep saying public sector does not exist to create jobs. It's work. Yeah. It's only one.
Let's carry to the chase. You said the rest I can bite in the book, but the recommendations, tafadhali. Yeah.
Let's go back to the mathematics. I think maths is very critical. We say that high-income economies, the domain is mathematics, right? Let's look at what we have seen in Kenya.
Yes.
The Ministry of Education. They have come up with a very interesting proposal that mathematics will be optional. Meaning our kids who are graduating from Form 4 will have the option.
Actually, they reinstated it. They said.
But even the thought of coming with that proposal.
Yeah, I know it was dramatic.
It was because of pressure from the public. But
was it from the public, really?
For them to go back to mathematics.
Mathematics? No, yeah. That was from the public, but to remove it, it was not. Yeah. So meaning the political actors involved in this decision making, there's something missing, right?
That mindset can only thrive in a place where there's complete lack of understanding of what takes economic development.
Yeah, I get you, bro.
So the thing is, our students who will be graduating from 4 will have the option of graduating with mathematics. What's the objective for this? Just step back and think of it. What's the objective of this? According to me, the way I look at it from an economic standpoint, there are many objectives to this decision, but economic development is not one of them. It's not one of them. That means if you get rid of mathematics, it just means we'll not be able to transition from agriculture to service industries, the high income. We'll not be able to transition from low income to high income nations. We are grounded on agriculture.
Yeah.
This mindset comes from someone who loves poverty. Let me just put it like that.
But you would say we can claim and use reasons like it's systematic, it's cultural, it's generational. Those that are even trying to advocate for change like you do not even get the audience that they need.
I think it's a
platforms.
It's a deliberate, structured approach to kind of ground us on agriculture, low income, poverty. A deliberate move to put us there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of control, I don't know.
And so in what direction can we morph into if we have to, let's say, not even pause, let's still have agriculture on board, but let's introduce other entities of economic transformation?
I keep coming back to labor because the landscape of the private sector is determined by the quality of labor.
Yeah, I think you've said that this is the third time.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The third time
I want you to get the weight of it, because if you have mediocre labor force, private sector will not go anywhere. Yeah. You need the right software in the minds of labor force.
Yeah. So before I forget, I think there's a stat from the Federation of Kenya Employers that said the skilled population that are going into the job and labor force, in the job market and even the labor market, it's 67%, and most of them are not even fully skilled to competitively stay in those positions that they're going for, either if it's either private or still public. So, but they're graduates. Remember, there's still a demographic of dropouts as well, and those that even never stepped into higher learning institutions. So how do you incorporate all these people into this formula that can now start transforming the economy?
The thing is, the reason why I keep saying that the public sector exists to support the private sector. How does this support come about? It's creating a conducive environment for the private sector to thrive. Why? Investments. It attracts investments. Jobs, the jobs that the youth is looking for, the jobs that everyone is crying for. Jobs do not come from the public sector. They come from the private sector through investments. The question is, how do we attract these investments?
Yeah, investors.
Exactly.
Good. And I believe the reason is right political decisions as well, or conducive environment. But what is happening in our country, from your observation? I want you to point out the specific parts.
I think for me, the issue of broad-based, it goes against the principles of economic development.
What would you recommend then, if it's not done?
We need to get the right framework of economic development. The aspect of exporting young people to Middle East under the name of cheap labor, economic development, whatever that means, that's a betrayal to Kenyans. I've stayed in Scandinavian countries. The kind of skills they export is highly, qualified people. Look around, like maybe Amazon, the global giants in Kenya. Most of the IT people, they come from developed nations.
Yeah.
Why? That's what we say when we mean exporting talent.
Yeah. So
just be highly.
Yeah. So in short, we positioned ourselves as more of a consumer culture country than a creator country. Manufacturer / consumer. I don't know if you're seeing it in that angle. Yeah.
Let me give you maybe a scenario. I think last year, there's a report which was, showing the number of companies that have moved away from Kenya. And also, there's another one which will show you that when you go to the business registration, the number of auctioneers, the business that do auctioneering, the numbers have doubled, opening new businesses auctioneers because people are not paying loans. Why? The environment is not, it's hostile to business. We need to create the right environment to attract investments.
Yeah. So some of the things that we've done that are not attracting investors, apart from the Gen Z protest, hiyo imesema sana. Yeah.
Some of the things,
that we are doing that are not attracting investors, and now we saw investors exit last year as well.
I think last year, I think I saw some on social media, some MPs who were saying manufacturers should consider going to Uganda.
Yeah, and actually most of them went to TZ.
What are you doing to the private sector? That goes against the principles of economics. Can we change that? Can we change that framework?
So it starts from, does it start from individual, single-handedly as a person to be deliberate, or from our leadership system?
The thing is, I feel like we need the right leaders who, it's not about leadership, I think so. It's less about the leadership, but more about someone who understands how these metrics come across. They come together when you talk about labor, capital, and product. How do they come together? How is the private sector and public sector, how do they interlink? We need someone who has that mindset. And that's why I'm making a case to Kenyans. I think we have what it takes to move this country from.
I think Dayton Mulinge has the right approach here. Yeah. So if you were to, let's say, have been a sit down with John Buddy, Cabinet Secretary, Treasury, and Economic Planning, what would be the recommendations that you would cite to him that would possibly kickstart us on the journey to goodness? Now that even our GDP, look at the things that are going into it, what's happening again still in the private sector and this other side as well. Yes.
The issue of public sector employment brought to the government in increasing salaries. I think that's something he can tame from, from his docket. I don't know what that means, but we need to reduce that, scale that down. Public sector is not there to create jobs. We need to reduce that.
Yeah, but there's still people who need to run the public sector, and they have to be on employment, whether contractual or voluntary.
I know.
But I doubt if somebody would volunteer.
But that growth of 66% within 4 years, by all measures, it doesn't make sense. Why is Kenya 66% within 4 years and Sweden is, Finland is 2%? It doesn't make sense. We need to go back to, we need to look at that.
Yeah.
And that money should be directed to either to education or healthcare.
I think there's a statistic that recently said our economy, our GDP is compared, I don't know, to, not Singapore. There's one of the countries as well. It says we are doing well. So if they're saying we are doing well, but here you are injecting.
The thing is, when you think of the debt to GDP in Kenya, we are talking of 68% of the money we collect going to pay debt. Are we really doing well? Are we really doing well? Look at our healthcare system. Our health professionals, they have been in the streets for the last, I don't know, are we really doing well?
Yeah.
Education is an issue. 30% of students who graduate from Form 4 only meet the minimum proficiency level. Is that not a cause for alarm?
Yeah. Before I forget as well, the issue of public debt and internal debt, does it also contribute to streamlining, say, a stable economic approach? I don't know if we are at around 1 trillion or we are more. I think we are more
next
than
week,
10.
I think I'll come and talk about capital, the capital metric, because it captures all those things, what we need to do about the debt and all that. Yeah. We will come and talk about that.
So what should be worrisome, public or because internal, I believe domestic we can sort it out, but still, again, it touches a lot on the private sector and then the financial sector at large. Yeah?
I think what we have, if you go by the laws, the money the loans they're supposed to take, and what the commercial banks are doing, these are disconnects. We need to look at that. We need to look at that. Yeah.
Now, with Trump cutting ties, mostly with the issue of foreign aid, I think there's been massive uproar from healthcare, from the healthcare.
Absolutely, it's going to be painful.
Yeah. So, what can we do to shortly stabilize it as we try to
I
find
keep
a
saying
soft
this.
landing?
This salary increment, salary increment in the public sector, within 4 years, 66% of salary increment. Scale down the government. Use that money to finance the healthcare. This idea of outsourcing our healthcare system to NGOs, to Bill Gates, in Scandinavia, it's a foreign concept. We need to own our education system. We need to own the healthcare system. It's us. Align our education, align our healthcare systems with the vision we have for this country. We need to own it.
Yeah. What about taxation? Just from, because just the other day you were talking of unga being at, I think it started at 200, it went at 150. Now I think the prices are ranging from some of these small commodities for some of these outlets. Yeah.
Tax. When I look at tax, I look at it from the private sector aspect. Why are businesses moving from Kenya? The environment is hostile for businesses. Why? Punitive taxes. Could we look at that? We need to look at that. We need businesses in Kenya. We need to attract businesses in Kenya. We have to look on the issue of taxes when it comes to businesses.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe this should be my second last question. The Finance Bill 2025 is already out, and
I've not even looked at it, but it's okay.
I partially skimmed through it, and they're saying it's going to finance 2025-2026 budget. That means there's adjustments to places where there'll be more taxation. Do you see it again being channeled to the private sector? And is it right for a finance bill to fund a budget?
It goes against the principles of economics. We're in industry space. But at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer who has to suffer. It's me and you who is suffering. That's why I keep saying we need a new vision. This is not sustainable in the long run. We need a new vision to take this country on the right trajectory for prosperity.
Yeah.
We can't grow. The way it is structured, it grounds us on agriculture. We need a new vision for this country. Yeah.
But what would you say are alternatives to agriculture? Because if you're comparing it as well
agriculture is good,
to Scandinavian countries, they have alternatives of tech, they have other industries as well, But for us, Kenya.
We need to invite those businesses. We need to invite those businesses. We have to create the right environment to attract those investments. Scandinavian countries are scouting for opportunities in Africa. Nigeria, South Africa. When you look at the foreign direct investment, I think Nigeria, in Africa, I think Nigeria and South Africa, they're the one with the largest share. Why not Kenya?
Yeah.
Why not Kenya? The environment is punitive to businesses. We need to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to learn from you.
But this today was just about labor. I'll talk specifically about capital. We'll talk about all these taxes and and also the book is coming. Okay. There's a lot of recommendations and all that.
Can you hint or tease the book?
It will be more about it will be like a manual for economic development when it comes to African nations, not just Kenya. I think we are all in the same category.
Africa.
Yeah. It will be more of a manual. What to do, what framework should we use, the metrics, what do you need to focus on.
As a typical Gen Z, because this show is mainly for the youth, this is like an advanced economic class for advanced students. So how would you package this conversation to a Gen Z who would want to be, in such a profile like you are? Because you're talking in a language that you could propose to a cabinet secretary and educate him about his docket. But this conversation could be enveloped in a very simple way to a Gen Z who can try to, also get into the space. So what would you tell them in terms of the whole entire aspect of economic transformation?
The thing is, okay, I know economic development is, it can be heavy to many, but with these two questions, the one I propose,
equipping.
How do you equip the labor force? How do you equip our young ones? What skills do you need? That's one. Two, how do you create a conducive private sector?
Yeah.
I think businessmen want a good, if you're a business person, you need a good place to do your business, right?
Yeah.
You need the right taxes, the right,
Yeah.
Those two questions will take care of everything.
Okay.
Those two questions will take care of everything.
And it touch on education as well.
Labor is about education.
Yes, sir.
Skills.
Yes.
So if you, and I come back, let me say this. I want you to put these questions when you interview whoever comes to your show. Those aspiring to lead this country. Those two questions, they will fast track, they will help us to leapfrog from low income to high income nations within a very short span of period.
Yeah.
Anything outside those two questions is noise.
You said it's noise.
It's not helping us.
So,
those two questions.
Noted. Yeah. So your parting shot to the Gen Zs as we exit.
I think there's a say that the highest form of patriotism is not about reciting the national anthem. It's not about wearing bracelets with the colors of the national flag. The highest form of patriotism is the belief in delayed gratification. The belief in delayed gratification. Fighting for a change that you may not live to see, but your kids, your children, will live to enjoy. I think this moment demands the spirit of patriotism. We have to fight for the next generation.
Being futuristic. So, Dayton, you should do a TED talk about this. And I pray you do it at some point here. But thank you so much. A lot to learn, endless conversation. Literally, I've been a student in this whole entire interview. So thank you so much for your insights. When is the book coming out?
Towards the end of August.
Okay, so they should check around.
You better buy it.
Do you have a LinkedIn where they can
Of course,
get
I have
hooked?
my Dayton Mulinge. I have also a Twitter account at Dayton. My Twitter account is at Dayton_Mulinge. That's my Twitter account.
Still LinkedIn as well?
LinkedIn is just my name, Dayton Mulinge.
So, word. Thank you so much.
And I have a business. Maybe they can come to my business.
Yeah, sure. Say it. Say it. It's the time to say it.
AIQuants.io. That's my business. I do portfolio management. If you want someone to help you with the management of funds, whatever it is, I can help you direct that.
So they can find you in those specific platforms?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, okay, so thank you so much
Asante.
for being here. Right, we've been speaking to Dayton Mulinge. This has been a lecture. So, a lot to learn from our economy to our education sector. And actually what I've learned, I've actually jotted those questions. How do we equip our young learners or our youth so that we transform our economy? And he mentioned something a lot about to do with mathematics. And you know what I'm saying. So, thank you so much. My good name is Van Sako. See you on the other side.